here is my small bag. It is 9 inches across, 8 inches tall. And right now I have this laying, no I don't, let me flip it around. I have this laying right side up. Have to remember which side I decided was right side up on this fabric. So you want to lay your fabric out with the right side up, okay? And then you're going to fold it over. And you are going to sew a 1/2 inch seam allowance. You're going to sew across the top, okay? And then you're going to sew down more than halfway, okay? Leave an opening and then sew a little bit here and across the bottom. So basically, you're doing a 1/2 inch seam allowance across all 3 of these sides, but you're going to leave a little opening in the bottom half of the long end, okay? So go ahead, pin that down, sew that together, and then we will come back. Okay, now that I have made this stitching, you can see I have this opening right here. I'm going to clip my corners. That just means cutting them at a 45-degree angle, but leaving just a little bit away from, I've got about a 1/16 of an inch away from the actual sewn corner. Okay, so just clip those corners. Okay. Now we're going to do some turning. So I'm going to open this up and turn. I have my point turner, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure those points on my long section are nice and crisp. And I clipped those corners, so that should work nicely without a whole lot of extra stuff going on. And then what I'm going to do, I'm not going to worry about making these corners crisp, but I am just going to make sure that everything is out of my way. Hold on a second, let me get my finger in there. There we go. I'm just going to get everything out of my way. And I'm going to really quickly just top stitch this opening shut. Okay, I'm going to top stitch that closed. Okay, so now I've top stitched my little opening closed, and what I'm going to do now is take the part that has the top stitching on it, the bottom half, where I didn't really worry so much about making my corners crisp, and I'm going to push that inside the other part. So those crisp corners are going to be the two bottoms, are going to be the bottom of the bag on the outside. And the other two corners I didn't bother making crisp, didn't need to be crisp because they're right side, they're remaining the other direction, going inside the bag. Okay. Now, if you want to, I definitely recommend it, to get everything nice and neat. What I do is I push my corner in and put a little straight pin in it. And then I push this corner in, put a little straight pin in it. Then, making sure I don't stab myself with those pins I just put in. You can use safety pins if you're klutzy. I probably should, because I'm klutzy. Just kind of get your bag so that it's folded halfway. Once you have it folded nice and in half, and you pull those pins out, you should then be able to get it really nice and neat. And you're going to iron that flat, and then we'll be able to sew in the Velcro. Okay, so I have this folded flat. Now I have this Velcro, which didn't seem to line up very well. Let me make sure it's just the right size. Because even if you measure things before you stitch, once you stitch, sometimes things don't turn out as perfectly as you'd like them to. So let's see, this looks awesome. Okay, so what I'm going to do is sew one side of the Velcro to one side of my bag, the other side of the Velcro to the other side of my bag, and it will just Velcro shut like that, and I'll have this tiny little Velcro shut bag. Okay? Okay, so here is my little Velcro bag. You see I have the Velcro inside. It's a little bit of space from the edges there, so I can put my things in it and then Velcro it shut. And, you know, it stays pretty tightly. It's definitely tight enough for, you know, coins, whatever you need to toss in here. You put business cards, whatever you want in there. Okay, so there's a tiny little bag. You need 2 more 9" by 8" pieces for your medium bag. So now what you're going to do is lay them right sides together so that we have 9 inches across and 8 inches tall. And then we're going to kind of peel back one layer. So now I'm placing my zipper on here, and you can see that my zipper was a little bit longer. If your zipper is too long, don't fret. Just measure it 9 inches from just a little past that clipped line. You need to basically have about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch from the front of your zipper pull to the end here, and then from there measure down the length of your fabric, in this case 9 inches. And I just put a little pencil mark. I'd put a little pencil mark there, and then I went to my sewing machine and I sewed back and forth a couple times just across the end, and then I was able to cut off my zipper. Okay, so that's all I did to shorten the zipper. Because it's a plastic zipper, I was able to do that. If it's a metal zipper, you're going to have to just like hand tack around the zipper a few times, and then you kind of cut up to right between the teeth on this side and cut up to right between the teeth on this side and take it off, because you can't really cut through the metal teeth with your usual regular scissors. So now that I've done that, what I'm going to do is encase one side of my zipper in these 2 pieces of fabric. So I'm going to sandwich it in there with the zipper sitting like this, right? I'm going to sandwich this in, and I'm going to sew just a little ways away from the actual teeth of the zipper. Here I have one side of my zipper installed, and I want to explain to you a little bit about what I did when I was sewing. So when I had this all together here, what I did was I started sewing up here on the back end of the zipper, and I sewed down to about to here, and then I left my needle planted in the fabric through everything, but I lifted up the presser foot, and with the needle planted in but the presser foot up, I actually unzipped my zipper past the point where the needle was still in the fabric. Okay, then I put the presser foot down and kept sewing, and by doing that I never had to sew past the zipper pull, and that way it didn't get in my way, and you don't end up with that little bump right here from where the zipper pull got in your way, and you have a little bump in your sewing from trying to get past it. So basically I sewed down to about here, left the needle in, but lifted up the presser foot, unzipped past there, put the presser foot back down, and sewed the rest of the way. That's how I did that. Now we're going to go ahead and sew the other side. So we're going to close this again. I'm going to put this side folded up here, this side folded up here, and I'm going to sandwich that zipper in and sew across again, and I'll use that same technique to keep the zipper pull out of my way when I sew across. Okay, so I've got my zipper sandwiched in on this side, and now what we're going to do is make sure your zipper is open. Doesn't have to be open all the way, but most of the way at least. Okay, I'm getting mine open, okay? And just be safe, leave it closed a tiny bit just to make sure I don't accidentally yank it through. And then I'm just going to kind of flip things around and through. Ta-da! Look at that. Okay? So now really quickly, before I do anything else, I'm going to press this seam. All right, I want to make sure, you see how I had pressed this seam? I'm going to go ahead and press this seam with my zipper. All right, try not to melt your zipper if it's a plastic zipper. But you know, the biggest difference, a lot of times the biggest difference between something that looks homemade and something that looks handmade, as people say, or something that looks like, you know, someone who just learned how to sew made it versus somebody who is a professional made it. Two of the biggest differences, the main difference is ironing, and then the second difference is sometimes top stitching. Okay, so you could top stitch. If you're really good at top stitching, you can top stitch these down, and that will also give it a more crisp look. Okay, some people don't like the look of the top stitching, whatever floats your boat, but you do want to make sure you iron this really, really well. Okay, so let's do that next. Okay, now this is where things get really weird. Alright, what we're going to do now is kind of reopen the zipper, the whole bag, into that weird two-piece thing that we had. Okay, remember this? Okay, we're going to do that, but we're going to flip it to this. Okay, back to where it was before we ironed it and everything. Just wanted to iron it first to really make sure everything was where it wanted to be. Now that we've done that, we're going to take the back end and we're going to we're going to seam it at a 1/2 inch seam allowance over here, and then skip the zipper and seam a 1/2 inch seam allowance over here. You're going to stop about 1/4 inch or so away from the zipper, 1/2 inch to 1/4 inch away from the zipper. Okay, and then seam 1/2 inch down. And then on this side, make sure that the tops of the fabric are lined up. Start 1/2 inch or so away from the zipper, seam 1/2 inch down. Okay, then you're also going to, back on this side, on only one side, you're going to start about 1/2 inch down from the zipper and seam 1/2 inch down, but only on one side over on the open end. Okay, here we go. On the back end of the zipper, I have seamed starting at about 1/2 inch or so from each side of the zipper all the way down, making sure both times when I sewed, I made sure to line up the top of the fabric. Okay, and then I did that just on the one side, on the side where the top of the zipper is. So I kind of looked inside and I was like, oh, okay, this is the top of the zipper. Since this is the top of the zipper, this is the part that I sewed. Okay, the zipper pull is up here, so this is the part that I sewed. All right, now what we're going to do is flip this entire bag. All right, let's see. Flip it through. Right side. So the zipper is on the top, and that will leave that open seam, that open hole will end up on the inside of our bag. Now what we can do real quickly before we actually toss that in is go ahead and fold that 1/2 inch in. You might want to give it a little press or something if I can. It's just being fiddly today. There we go. Fold in that 1/2 inch and you can top stitch that. Okay, so you can top stitch that 1/2 inch fold real quick. Okay, so I pulled this all out, folded that over and top stitched it. Now I'm pushing this lining inside my bag, all right? And then you can push all of your little corners out. Use your corner tool if you need to. Okay, push your little corners out all nice and pretty. And this one too, all nice and pretty, maybe. There we go, look at that. Okay, so I'm gonna neaten up these two sides and then we'll zip shut. So now I want to attach my little strings to about this area on my purse. Where you want it to be is when you're wearing the purse, you want it to be on the outside of the purse. So like this side is against your body, this side is the outside. So I want it to be on the outside of the purse and towards the front of your body. So this would be the back of my body, this would be the front of my body. So in other words, here is my side right here. Here is my front, here is my back. All right, so I'm going to attach these right in here. What I'm going to do is first I'm going to do the yellow one, and I'm going to attach it to a yellow stitch. So go ahead and get your slip knot on your hook. Okay, however you want to do a slip knot, get your slip knot on your hook and pull that through one of your yellow stitches, and then loosely chain. And I'm going to loosely chain, I don't know, we'll see. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I've loosely chained about 35. All right, now I need to attach this little hook. So I'm going to just kind of slip stitch through, do whatever you need to do to kind of get one in there, and then slip stitch, then make a chain. Okay, and then kind of slip stitch through the loop, and then make a chain, and then kind of slip stitch through the loop, maybe slip stitch through the loop, and then make a chain. All right, so I've gone around here several times, about 3 times, and I feel a lot more secure now. Now what I'm going to do is turn this sucker around and find the bottom bumps of those chain stitches that I made for my rope here, and I'm going to slip stitch into the bottom bump of each of these chains until I get back to the start of the chain. Okay, so now I've gone all the way back to the bottom, and I'm actually going to slip stitch into that stitch that I joined to in the first place, and then cut a long tail, yarn over, pull through, and then I'm going to weave in both of these ends so it's nice and secure. And here we have our little strap. So now you see how long the strap is as compared to the bag. I wanted it, you know, long enough so that when I'm pulling it out I actually have some room to work with it. So I think that's a good one, and I think this one I made, I think, what was it, 35? I made this one 35 stitches long, and I think I'll go ahead and maybe do the next one. I think I'm going to start down a little lower and make it maybe 40 stitches.